Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Wednesday, August 10th in the Locker Room. I'm Alan Locher. Ariana Muenker is here today to look back at her roles on daytime television and fill us in on what she's been doing over the last few years. Daytime fans will remember her for her roles as Christie Rogers and Christine Valere on Guiding Light, Annie Stewart and Melinda Gray Spencer on As the World Turns, Marianne Rudolph on Another World, Amanda Kirkland on Ryan's Hope, and Kimberly Brady on Days of Our Lives. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Locker Room Ariana Muenker. Hi, Ariana.
Hey, Alan. Thank you so much for making this time for me today. I feel like I'm going back and past.
You're going back in time,
That's right. That's right.
I love it, saying, Christie Rogers and Christine Valere and Melinda Gray
Yeah.
Spence, Annie Stewart, two characters on the same shows. I love that. But first, we have to thank, and I would like to thank Bruce Rasposa, Rose Papa, for connecting us today.
Yes. Thank you so much. Bruce has been a good friend, and we met through this connection, and now we are just people with each other. So I love his devotion to charities and good causes, and he's a friend. He's like what I would define as a friend.
That's awesome. And social media basically connecting you, right?
I know.
Right?
Never would have guessed that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't, when you were on daytime, you could connect via snail mail.
Exactly. Yeah, there wasn't even email.
Right. There wasn't even email. Exactly. Well, I love that we have this connection. You were born and raised in New Jersey. Tell me what your childhood was like in New Jersey.
Oh, well, I had two brothers, one older, one younger. You can only imagine what that was like. I was the only girl. And then when actually I was 17, my mom had her last kid, another boy. So there's all boys and I'm the girl in the family, and we have pets. I grew up with pets. I learned to play the piano when I was 5. My mother's very musical. She's also a former dancer, ballerina dancer. So there was a lot of art and music and creativity in our family. And there was never acting. Like, that wasn't a thing. And it was so much about what serendipity is in life, how you find a new path. And I was 10 actually 9 when I started acting. So
interesting. Well, I want to ask a question for us, and I hope you say yes. Are you still playing piano?
I know how to play piano.
Okay,
and I actually
that's good.
have my beautiful grand piano here in California. We shipped it all the way across country from my parents' house.
Wow.
And I do know how to play. My husband actually is miraculous. He hears a piece of music and he can go downstairs on the piano and play it. Not maybe note for note, but he plays it. It's amazing.
Those people to me are amazing. I really think the piano is one of the most beautiful instruments because you can literally walk into a room and change the mood in a second.
That is so true.
Yeah, it really is. It's fascinating to me. It's just like one of those most gorgeous instruments. Do you still have family here in New Jersey?
Yes, my parents.
Wow.
I won't give their actual ages away, but I will tell you that they are living a very, very long, healthy life.
Good for them. That's amazing. Yeah. So you said 9 or 10. What drew you to acting?
It was, like I said, the serendipity of it. My mother's friend's daughter, and nobody on this call might remember it unless they've been around for a while, but there used to be Little Miss America. Does that sound familiar to you, Alan?
Yeah, like a younger version, right?
Yeah, like little kids. And my mother's friend's daughter was second runner up. And she started doing acting things. And we were living in New Jersey, and no one was thinking about that at that time. Nobody had those 15 minutes of fame that everybody has access to now.
Right.
And she came to my mom and she said, I see your daughter's type every time I go bring my daughter in for auditions. You should check it out. And it wasn't even that my mom or anything thought that would be a good idea. She just checked it out. And the woman, Barbara Jarrett, she is quite famous with child managers. She actually discovered Brooke Shields. She discovered Oh my goodness, that the name is missing me now. She's the last thing I saw her in was in CSI. What's the actress's name? She's done several films. Blonde, short blonde hair, adorable.
Somebody may tell us shortly.
Okay, someone will tell us.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that somebody will be Googling this right now, right?
Yeah, they'll tell
the
us.
Karate Kid. She was in The Karate Kid.
Elizabeth Shue?
Yes. So Elizabeth Shue, Brooke Shields, a little younger than me, Elizabeth Shue around the same age as me. And we were all kind of in the same group together. Also Jodie Foster. Like Jodie Foster wasn't with my manager, but we were all like the young girls during that time going in for auditions and things.
Wow. So it was a hike for you for those auditions.
Yeah. I'll tell you, in school, I would regularly miss a third of my school days because of auditions and work. When I was on Broadway, when I was doing soaps and Broadway. So it was an interesting childhood that didn't seem unusual to me. Looking back on it, it was totally, an anomaly, right?
What was Broadway like? What show did you do?
The first one I did was Happy Birthday, Wanda June with Gwen Verdon.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. And Gwen Verdon was in Children. Kevin McCarthy and Marsha Mason were in, and Bill Hickey were in Happy Birthday, Wanda June. Trying to get my Broadway shows straight.
And still pretty amazing actors on that end.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I ran into Kevin McCarthy before he passed away a few years ago at Costco, and he remembered me.
I love that. Yeah. What do you remember about Broadway? When you think of that experience?
Well, there were some highs and lows. We started off Broadway, and then when there was the strike, we went on Broadway. That's how we came back. And at one point, I remember, I think, being 10 years old, after doing the same thing over and over again, since I didn't dream of being an actress, it just kind of fell in my lap. And I loved doing it when I did it, but when I got bored, I got bored. And it was an interesting experience because it has left quite a memory for me. I enjoyed very much working with all of the actors. Nicholas Coster, another actor from the soaps, he was on that show too. Yeah. And I have some stories about all of them. Some of them I'm going to keep my lips sealed for now. Maybe if you have me back on, we'll talk about the dramas.
You need to write a book.
Well, pretty much. And it was just wonderful. And Bill Hickey, once sat me on his lap, and he just was adorable to me. He was like a big brother to me, and he just would listen to whatever I said, and he was a good person, a really good person. In fact, a little later, when I was a young adult, I took some of his acting classes with him.
I want some of the fans watching, because they will help me out, but I feel like Bill Hickey did Guiding Light. I could be wrong, but
you know what? I think he played somebody's father's, uncle's, grandpa.
Somebody might tell me that it rings a big bell for me that Bill was there. What was your first paid TV gig? Do you remember?
I'll tell you. Well, I did commercials, a lot of commercials in the beginning. And my very first,
which are great for a young person.
Exactly. Like in those days, they ran commercials for months and months and months. And every time they ran, you got a residual on it. So I don't know how things are now today. But I'll tell you, my very first commercial was for something called Happy Toothpaste or Happy Face. And you wore this cutout mask when you brushed your teeth as a child. Clearly, it didn't make it the cut with Crest and Colgate over time. But that was my very first job. And I seemed to I booked a lot when I was young. Like when I was a kid, I just kept getting commercials and modeling jobs. And then pretty much my first year, 1970, I booked Happy Birthday, Wanda June, Guiding Light. I was the best friend of Hope. Christie, I was the Christie Rogers character there.
Elvira, was it Elvira Rossell? Might have been before Elvira.
No, this was Alyssa Leeds. I worked with her.
Yeah. I was going to say Elvira Rossell was an older version of that character, Hope.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
So my first job was that silly commercial, but it tumbled. Like I was booking 1 or 2 things a week. That's why I missed so much school too at that time. But it was a, as they call it, a flood without even having like ever thought about it, about acting. I wanted to be a vet. That's what I wanted to be.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you about school. Well, so no. So as a kid, you wanted to be a vet because you
Yes.
didn't go to school to be a vet. Because I
No,
did.
no.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, did you have lots of pets?
We did. We kept having pets and pets, and of course the local carnival where you throw the ball and you get the little goldfish, those kind of things.
Oh, me too. I had the
Yeah.
goldfish from those.
Yes.
And that's probably
Dogs,
why I
cats,
never ate
everything.
fish, because I never wanted, my poor little goldfish to.
One of our goldfish we took to the local pond and released it.
Wow. I did look up Bill Hickey He played a character named Joe Kowalski on Guiding Light in 1986.
Wow.
I don't know. I'll have to figure that out another time, but I did. I knew the name sounded familiar. That's crazy. And the Doctors you had a little role, right?
Right. Greta Powers, the character Greta, she was played by another actress and she was out for a while. So
Gotcha.
that was in the beginning, the networks vet you in those days. I don't know how they do it now when they choose somebody. It seems more random now, but in those days, I had done some commercials for those, like you said, Procter and Gamble, who was sponsoring those shows. Then you would get vetted for each of the main networks. So my first jobs were, let's see, the Doctors was ABC, right?
NBC.
Okay, so NBC loved me. Then I went on after that. Guiding Light, Another World. So Guiding Light and Greta. Guiding Light was first. Greta was as a little, just a couple of times to fill in for her.
Gotcha.
The main actress.
But so Christie was first.
Christie Rogers was first as like
yes.
a character that I owned, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know the actress who played Hope at that time. That's
Alyssa Leeds. You should look her up. She's wonderful.
That's probably a little before I started watching.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely watched Christine Valere.
Oh yeah, she was my fun little.
Yeah,
I appreciated her.
We'll get to, so you attended Rutgers University. What did you major in there?
So what a funny little result for that. So I was actively working on one of the soaps at that time. And I graduated a year early from high school. I finished all my credits. And then those days that was kind of unusual to do. So I don't know why my parents and I decided that was a good idea, but I think I just needed to know that I was done with the commitment of a regular school. If I wanted to go to college, I could choose to do that. And at that point, I did decide to go to college. I went to Rutgers. Douglas actually is my alma mater. And in that time, I was working on soaps. And so I was missing class. And the classes I wanted to actually take were psychology. That's what my major wanted to be. I really loved, probably because I was all these different characters throughout the earlier years of my career, I really was fascinated by people and who they are and how we function, how we tick, because I always had to figure out who am I as my character and what's my deeper world, right? And so when I did that, I was missing a lot of lab. And my guidance counselor said to me, you know what, I don't think that this is going to be your major. You can't miss class because there's no way to make it up and you can't get the credits. So I thought, okay, what else do I do? I'll go into acting because it had a very robust acting space. Bill Esper. I don't know if you're
I know the name.
With him.
Yeah.
He Sandy Meisner. Do you know him?
Mm-hmm.
Very famous acting teacher.
Yeah.
And Bill Esper was one of his proteges as a teacher. And Bill was the head of the department. And I remember going and having an interview or talking to him or going in for it. And he basically told me, even though I was working actress, he said to me that if I wasn't going to be able to attend the workshops, because I was missing class also for that, he said that he wouldn't really be able to have me graduate with that as my background. And I just thought that was really ironic. I was working as an actress and yet I wouldn't be given credit as studying as one. So I ended up in sociology, which you could do with your eyes closed, But I was grateful. I did finish my 4 years, and I did it in 5. I took a couple of semesters off because I was working so much. I didn't have
Yeah,
time to do
it's
class.
not easy when you're working.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Marianne Randolph on Another World was your first contract, right?
Yes.
What do you remember anything about the audition for Marianne?
I think those earlier days, thinking of the auditions, they just seemed like, oh, I'm going to audition for this. I'm going to audition for that. There actually is a funny story. It isn't related to Another World, but it is related to the guiding light job.
Yeah, tell me.
Talking about, what was your experience of your screen test for that, right? My mother would drive me in from New Jersey. It was a 45-minute drive. We were in a car. It was sometime in the late summer, I think, July, August, where it was very warm. The car overheated. So we had to pull over to the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. We had just passed the Holland Tunnel, which is exit 14, and we were going towards the Lincoln Tunnel, but we had to pull over. And so I'm in the car knowing I'm going to go for this audition for a part on Guiding Light. And we're going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it. We're going to be too late. A cabbie pulls over. A New York cab that must have been dropped someone off at the airport, pulls over. And this was the day where you kind of did these things. My mom, if she were to, she's probably watching this, she's probably going, oh, Ariana, don't tell them that I did that. But we talked to the guy. She gave him some money, gave him the address of where I needed to be dropped off. And I was put in that car. And I think I was like 10 years old. And he dropped me off at the audition. And I went in and did my audition and got the job. So that was extremely memorable. And then later on, my mom, had a tow truck and they fixed the car and then she came and picked me up. But it's just like, nobody would do that anymore.
Nobody would do that anymore.
Yeah, it was a different world. We lived in a different land. And for the Marianne Randolph character, I was a seasoned soap opera actress by then. In my mind, it was just an interview, just a job. But I do remember that I went in a few times and I knew it was serious and I knew it was getting serious because I didn't just, those days, they really did want to put you through the first audition. Then you got a call back. Then you got the callback of the callback in those days. And when I found out that I got that job, I was so excited and elated. And I was also scared. I mean, the bottom line is when you go into these new spaces and you're a kid and you don't really know, what is it going to be like? But they were so nice on the set. And Alyssa took me right under her wing. She and I are basically the same age. And she took me into her dressing room. She had 2 little Yorkie dogs sitting there. And eventually I got a little one like that too, because of her. So.
And Michael, Ryan, and Beverly Penberthy played your parents?
Love them. Yes. And in fact, I spent a couple of weekends with Beverly and her family when we were going skiing. They had a little place, a condo that they rented, and they took me on a couple of vacation, like short weekend vacations to go skiing with their daughter. Their daughter and I were roughly the same age.
And your character had an abortion, correct?
That was a big deal in those days.
Yeah, I was going to say, what do you recall, not only telling the story, but the reaction to the story?
So in those days, people sent fan letters, right?
Yeah.
And I think I had some odd fan letters from many of the shows that I was on. I think in that one, I, by and large, felt a lot of support. There were a few people who had a focus that was from their religious point of view, that they were, very upset that happened. And I would always answer back fan letters, even if it was a short answer, thank you for sending me. And if they requested something, I would fulfill on it. And I think that things like that, I felt compelled to want to let them know, I get it. This is a complicated subject. And for me in those days, being so sophisticated, not, but I was so adult-like with the way that I dealt with these kinds of themes. I don't think the impact really hit me until I was a little older.
Yeah. It does. You don't realize what you're telling. One of our viewers, Floyd, had written me. He said, I remembered Beverly McKinsey on a talk show talking about Marianne's abortion. She said, oh, it was a lovely Christmas show. The family is home having turkey while the daughter is off having an abortion.
Yeah, the soap operas, they know how to really highlight an idea.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about Beverly? I know you didn't work with her much, but what a talent.
Oh, well, they were around. We were all around each other. I had, I was the kid. So my connections with her weren't direct. I just was in awe of her abilities. She was the salt of the earth, off screen. And then she just took on this this bigger than life personality, and just a spectacular actress. And
spectacular.
Everyone, we had a lot of respect for each other and each other's, paces and where we were. And there was a lot of support. And I do remember the woman who played Ada. Why can't I remember her name? A little Tell. And in fact, Another World, I was on one of the soaps when it was still live. And I think it was As the World Turns. Or no, it was Another World. It was Another World.
Yeah.
And
I think you're right.
Yeah. And if you didn't see the show, then we were doing live, and there was my grandfather. And the character's name
Constance Ford played
Constance
Ada.
Ford was Ada.
Yeah.
And then the grandfather, my grandfather, was also another very famous 1950s actor in movies.
Oh,
in
wow.
fact, he was seen a lot in some science fiction movies that my husband has shown me. He's
Hugh Marlowe, says Tony.
Yes, Hugh Marlowe.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Benjamin. Yeah, that's. I mean, it is amazing the talent that went through Daytime's doors.
Well, I have a funny story about him. We were doing the show. It was live. I was having a scene with him. And suddenly he just looks at me like this. And it's his line. It's his line. And I'm going, oh. And I just went to my next line. I think it made kind of sense. And he just kept smiling at me as if, I don't remember my lines right now. So it's on you, darling, And when we got off, when the scene ended, because he picked it back up, he remembered his lines. When he picked it back up, I guess he saw the teleprompter, because we had teleprompters. He came up to me and he says, I just want to thank you for saving us.
Wow.
Yeah, so he acknowledged, but what a funny moment. We both froze because I was waiting for him to give me his line.
Live TV, yeah.
He didn't remember it, and we were alive. There was no turning back.
Yeah, there is no turning back. What do you think you learned working on Another World that helped you throughout the rest?
That's a good question. It's the schedule. It's the integrity about being on time. It's knowing your lines, being flexible, being in a team, right? It's not just about you. It's about who you're working with, and discovering. I didn't really discover chemistry then. I understood it later. But I did recognize that chemistry was important when you were working with the characters and connecting with them, being friends with them on some level. I knew several of the people would really bond heavily, but they lived in New York, so they would hang out with each other. I kept commuting back and forth to New Jersey until I was in the second role on Guiding Light. That's when I lived in the city, and that's when I was kind of had more chances to make deeper connections.
After Another World, it was As the World Turns.
That's right.
Annie first.
Annie Stewart, right. Carol Ann, and we called her Carol Ann. She wasn't Annie yet.
Oh, interesting. Because I do remember Annie. I don't remember which actress I remember, but it would be after you. I would think. You worked with incredible people in both roles.
Yep.
Well, what stands out when you think back to As the World Turns?
Oh, just the love on the set. There was a lot of love.
Kathy Hayes, Larry Brigman.
Oh yeah, they're great actors. I mean, I loved my second character playing with Larry Brigman. Boy, he's fun to work with. It's like he is fun. So you can go to work and go and say, I love my job when you work with people that are just they're up to fun stuff. They're up to the creativity.
Who did you prefer playing more, Annie or Melinda?
Oh, I think Melinda. I mean, I wasn't more of an adult. I had a moment when I was playing Carol Ann, I can share with you guys, as I was going through my own teenage years with the character. Uh, I was actually suggested at one point that I needed to lose a little weight because of the camera putting weight on. So I was brought into the producer's office, and they were really nice about it. But it's like I came home and I went, "Oh my gosh, Mom, they told me I have to lose some weight." It wasn't much, maybe 4 or 5 pounds. But when you're a teenager, you start to blossom in certain ways, and your hormones do things. Anyway, it was an interesting was interesting to have that be given to me. And I'll tell you, my whole career was always about, you're always going to be 10 pounds heavier on the screen. So you got to be more conscious of what you look like. And I've had to undo those thoughts, as I've gotten a little older, gentler, just a little gentler on just what I look like and how I'm aging and all of those, things that happen when you're alive.
That, many fans wrote to me when we were talking about doing this interview. They all remember Marianne's death.
And so do I. That was a big deal. If I think about it for anything longer than a few moments, when I was in it, I was a little bit in shock, I think, doing the experience and knowing that I was going to be complete with that character. And in a way, they kind of left me this little tiny thing saying, you might come back. But no one official said that. It was just this tiny rumor. And I knew that some characters sometimes would be revived. They'd be found, because they never found her body, right? But that was a big deal. We went, I think it was somewhere in Big Bear we went to some, it was like Bear 2.5
Mountain.
hours away. Yeah,
Bear Mountain.
Yeah, probably. It was a location shot. And, I had to get this bathing suit and then jump into the water and have that ribbon in my hair. And
did I call Melinda something else just now? Because Bruce said you mean Melinda. Maybe I said something else. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, anyway, after a while, all the characters will become one.
They blend together. They are you. They are you, right?
Yeah, they are. That was a touch. That was tough. And it was so sweet. They gave me a going away party. I mean, those were the days where the connection was deep in the cast. And when you lost one of us, when we had to move on for whatever reasons, and I can tell you, I'll fill in some little background. I didn't know this until a little bit later when my character on Guiding Light, Christine Valere, was let go. She was processed out. That the writers, when a writer created a new character, they got a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So every time a character was created, somebody made some money. And at that point, there were transitions, I think. I think more in the Guiding Light Christine Valere era, there was a producer that left. I was gone with the producer who brought me on. He had known me from another soap, and he brought me onto the show. So there was a lot of business going on in the background.
There's a lot of that at that time. I remember during that time, people brought in friends or which is great. I mean, if they like you and they bring you, but then if they get let go, there's no guarantee that you're going to, stick around. Was it your choice to leave as the world turns?
It was mutual
at that time.
Yeah.
But for Guiding Light, it was not. They had...
No. Oh my gosh. I've said this story once or twice before, but I'll share it with you because I think you're gonna love how we all the world mirrors us in so many different ways. And in this moment, one of my scenes, the day that I found out I was let go, I was working with Christie
Farrell.
Christie Farrell, love her. And then the Johnny character.
Jamie Goodwin.
Yes, thank you. I mostly know them as their characters, not their real names. Anyway, we had a really important it was the trio scene. And the scene was she and I are talking. And she basically threatens me with something or says something to me. And then I tell her, Johnny loved me and he will always have that in his life. And there's nothing you can do about that. And she takes her hand and she slaps me on the face. Well, in rehearsal, we were doing the classic acting slap, which is a kind of a cupped thing. And you kind of you do more of a visual and there's a connection, but it's choreography. Well, during our first take, she hits me so hard. And I think it's because we both were in the space. So as actresses, we became the characters. She hit me so hard, though. If anybody watches that scene, I'm shocked in that moment because I hadn't had that in any of the rehearsals. And I'm standing there stunned, like in the most perfect way. And then Johnny walks into the scene, and then he says something to me and I walk out, right? And then the two of them embrace or something, right? And at the end, when we cut and we were done, one of the stage manager came up to me and said, Ariana, the producer would like to talk to you. And I go, okay. I thought that was kind of odd. They usually don't connect with you, but I thought, okay. And it was the producer that I was, friends with in a way. And he sits me down. I go into his office and he sits me down and he basically tells me my character is going to be let go. My contract will be completed. I had a 3-year contract and it was a 6-month stint. They could let you go every 6 months. Most contracts had that. Mine did. And I just sat there. So I had been slapped literally and slapped metaphorically. And I didn't even know, I think, how to react. I think I was just shocked. And I walked out of that room in a daze. And I remember going back to my apartment because I lived in New York. I was by myself. And I think I sobbed. But it took me that long to get back to my apartment to go and figure out what had just happened.
Crazy.
Yeah. That was a wild experience.
You worked with Chris Burnell, who played Alan, right?
Yes. Talent, huge talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I had some wild scenes with him. I was wearing negligees and, and we were seducing each other. And it was just this game, that the characters were playing with each other. Yeah. My characters did that. I did that a little bit with Larry Brigman. I mean, there was some stuff that happened with that character, Melinda. It was more on his end. He was kind of forcing me, to kind of be, the bad girl with that character. But otherwise, yeah, all those great villains. I really enjoyed having an opportunity to play with them. Yep.
And you worked on World Terms with Colleen Zenk.
Love
who
her.
played Barbara.
Yeah. She came on the show, I think, 6 or 8 months earlier than I did, or a year earlier. And then they brought my character in, and hers became, one for the history books.
One for the history books. Sarah, yeah.
Yeah, great actress.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, you never know.
Yep.
Wild. What stands out from Guiding Light?
I think I was my first time really on my own as a person. And so I just felt like I had come into some kind of possible path. I think I finally owned that I could be an actress if I wanted to be. I think up until that time, things were so easily given to me that I didn't understand what it was. I didn't know that it was a business. And I was only just understanding it was a business. I still always held on to the idea that if you had talent, you'd get work. And I learned that that isn't necessarily always how the business works. And I think the reason I probably left is it became more about the business, which I saw the behind the scenes and what it looked like and who you had to be and who you had to be with others, that it kind of became a conflict for me.
And it leaves a bad taste.
Yeah. And look, if I had loved the acting business, I would have fought for it, because you have to fight for it at certain points. in your career. You have to reinvent yourself. But in a weird way, there was kind of an out that if I had to work for it, I really wasn't that up for it. Although I did a few movies, some small movies, these indie movies with a good friend of mine. Her name is Tina Mascara, and she's actually quite famous in the documentary world. Alan, you should look her up. She's pretty amazing. She did this beautiful documentary with her husband called Don and Chris, a love story. I don't know if you're aware of that.
I don't. I will look it up.
You should check it out. I think you would find it great. Don Bacardi is quite a well-known portrait artist. And Chris, what's his last name? Famous. He did I Am a Camera. He did Cabaret.
Oh,
he wrote Cabaret. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Isherwood. Christopher Isherwood.
Gotcha. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, you can look that up. And she did a interesting movie, and she asked me to star in it, and I starred as myself, sort of, even though with another name. I was a soap opera actress, and it was amazing. So I have it in my blood because I did it for so long and at such a young age. I don't think it's my true identity. I don't think that's who I am. But it did teach me to care about people and want to offer support. I'm a big supporter. Like, somebody needs help, they can always call me. That's the kind of person I am. I like when people band together and we work together on projects. I have a few projects that I'm doing with others that I'm pretty excited about. And they're all about living a deeper, more expanded life. I've even heard some famous actors say they reach a point in their career where they start to turn back and understand, who are they in the world of the characters they've been portraying for the years that they've been famous for. And when you come back home to yourself, there's so much more available. And having been exposed to the entertainment field as I was from such an early age, I was so many other people than myself that now.
From a really young age.
Yeah, a formative age,
Yeah.
A really formative age. And so I think I'm having my second childhood now.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's got to be, something that plays with your mind. As a young, it's different when, if you come to it later in life as an adult and you've had that childhood and been able to just be yourself, but not having the opportunity to always be yourself and have to play somebody different. I can see,
right.
How do we all, mentally, we all don't know how to process things that happen to us on a daily basis normally, right? Things happen and, you have to figure out a way to do that. One of the fans was asking, what was your experience like on Sesame Street?
That was such an interesting experience. You'll be surprised to know it was a total experiment. We were in some sort of warehouse right off of the Holland Tunnel exit.
Oh, wow.
It was a big, gigantic, kind of messy, empty space with litter in it. There was a group of kids. I was one of them. I was one of the older kids. And we were in a room with our parents. I was so bored out of my mind because they didn't know what they were doing yet. And we didn't even know there were puppets or, all the other stuff. And finally, the fourth day of the week that we were working, we hadn't even done anything. We were just sitting there being available to the production company. And they finally come in and they say, okay, we need some kids. And they picked us up. And I think one of the first shows airs on YouTube. So it's there if somebody wants to look at the first episode. And I'm in a brown dress. I have blonde ponytail, little ponytails that are down to my, my back. And I'm bouncing a ball with a little boy. And pretty much, I was on as one of those kinds of characters. And I do remember famously singing with Mahalia Jackson. We sang He's Got the Whole World.
Wow.
So, yeah, there was 4 of us. And in fact, the little blonde boy, you can catch that one on YouTube too. So just do Mahalia Jackson, Sesame Street. You can see us singing together. And the little blonde boy was my brother. My brother, Eric. my almost youngest brother. He was my youngest brother then. And then my mom had another baby later on.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You know, I was going to ask you about Guiding Light. Do you know, did you audition with Betty Ray?
Yes. The casting director?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was, oh my gosh, that name is so, it's like it takes me so back. Oh yeah. She loved me. She knew me from some of the other, shows and whenever she had done other projects that she was working on. Yeah, she was Shirley Rich, another big casting director in those days. Very, very big. Yeah, they were all on my team.
I love that. It's good to have them on your team, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good. It is really good.
Yeah, it's a good feeling. What was your experience playing Amanda like on Ryan's Hope?
I was I guess I have stories. I thought I didn't have any stories. I have stories. That audition was interesting. And I only realized it later that I was replacing somebody. I didn't know that. Nobody told me.
Oh, they didn't tell you. Yeah, I was going to ask what it was like replacing somebody, but yeah, they don't do that, and that's another interesting thing not to tell you.
Well, I think sometimes they do. I mean, Kimberly Brady, I knew that I was taking over a part because the original actress was taking a leave, and we didn't know how long it was. They didn't know how long it was, and it turned out it was as long as it was. And the one with Amanda Kirkland, though, was really weird because I remember there were 6 other actresses that we were doing the screen test at the studio where they were doing the show.
Yeah.
Yes. And they did the screen test at the end of that show day. So the show had, filmed, and then they brought us in and we were in makeup and everything. And I remember being in the hallway pressing the button to go up to the studio or down to the studio. I can't remember. And there was another young woman standing there all in makeup. And she was like she had been on the show. And she looked like she was one of the characters. Dark brown hair, really beautiful. And I think her real name is Amanda, the actress who was playing that role at that time. And we were standing in the hallway. And I looked at her and I said hi. And she said hi to me. And I was nervous. And she just smiled. And I then go on to my audition. And then I find out that I get the part. And later on, I realized she was playing the character at that point. And I don't even know she knew. I mean, I don't know who knew what, when. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I loved that character. And I loved the attempted suicide storyline that she had. That was wild. And she was in love with a guy who wasn't in love with her, so wonderful for, to model that for young women and to get through it. It's to go to the other side. But I liked her character because she was a little bit off kilter. She had a little kind of some emotional issues that she needed to deal with. And it was fun to play that character. I have actually her towel. They gave me a towel. So for the suicide attempt, she's wrapped in a towel. She's naked in the bathtub as the rescue people come. And it had the big AK on it, Amanda Kirkland. And that was the one thing they gave me when I left the show.
I love that. Yeah. You've got a towel. That's your prize. They said Mary Page Keller played, I think, the original.
That's it. Yeah, Mary Page Keller. She's a spectacular actress.
But they let her go.
You know what? That's why I'm saying it's not about the acting. I don't know what the dynamics are. I don't know what the politics are, but it's more politics than anybody actually even knows, really. And to keep jobs, politics. So I was never political that way. I never made relationships with people because I knew that would make a difference to my career. I just was what I was. And, it had its course the way it had its course.
Who were the other actors you worked with who played your boyfriend, the one you were in love with on Ryan's Hope? Do you remember who that is?
Yes. Somebody in your fan base will know. I love him. His name just Patrick.
What was the character?
Oh, the character's name was Pat. Okay, someone will remember. I mean,
Was it Dr. Not Patrick Ryan? I don't think
yes, it was Malcolm. I think his name was Malcolm.
Oh, Malcolm Groom.
Yeah.
Oh, Malcolm. I had Malcolm on my show. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
Really
Malcolm
salt of the
Strike.
earth guy.
Totally.
Yeah.
He's out in California, I believe.
Oh, he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will throw another name in that was a boyfriend on my part when I was leaving the Another World character, Marianne. So, does the name Eric Roberts mean anything to you?
Yes. Was
That
he
was
your
one. He
on the
was.
show?
He came on the show. I think he had a limited part.
Yeah.
He was on the show to transition my character off. At least that's how it worked out. And
Wow.
yeah, it was his first job, I think, on a soap opera. I'm sure he had done other work before that. But I mean, talk about a charisma like pouring out of his pores. At that age, he was just the hunk of hunks.
Eric Roberts. Wow. Yeah, I mean, so many people got their start on,
Oh, yeah.
crazy. But you knew when you took over for Patsy Pease that it was a replacement for Kimberly?
Oh, yes, I did. I went in knowing that was the case. She was on a medical leave.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah. And the hope was that I would have been able to own the character myself. But I don't know. I mean, she'd been playing that role for how many years?
Right.
And she also brought something special and different to it that I was just starting to understand. And, when life mirrors, when your life comes into your acting world, that's a very strong bond that you create with the character and with the audience. So I appreciated possibly that I just didn't resonate enough with the audience.
And that replacing somebody, I think, for an actor, first of all, it is difficult. And I think the artistry of the actor, the producing of the show, the writing, when you're introducing a replacement character, it has to be every part of that has to be A game, because you're asking us, the viewer, to fall in love with somebody new in a part that we've loved previously. Yeah. And if story doesn't sort of match that and has nothing to do with you as an with anybody replacing as an actor, if that doesn't always sync at that time to really engage the audience, I think it sets the actors up for failure in some respect.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know what the conversation was, in the background. It was a difficult job to get. There were 4 other well-known actresses that were up for the role. They had been seasoned in soaps, so it wasn't done lightly on their part. And whatever the mantle was, I carried it as long as I could. And then.
Is that part what took you west?
No, I was already in California. I moved into California in 1986.
Oh, wow. So right after Guiding Light, not long after Guiding Light.
Right. Yeah, I was told, go young actress. That's where the roles are. And I don't know, maybe I should have stayed. I was working a lot in New York. So I had a little cockiness going on too. I was like, oh, I'll do great here. It was a much bigger ocean. I mean, New York's ocean is intense. But once you get known there, then people keep going to you because you're reliable. In California, everything's so vast and big. The boundaries are bigger, you have to reestablish yourself again. So, and I guess because I didn't love it enough, I didn't fight for it enough. And then I
fell in love with California.
I only did after I met my husband. I was homesick for 3 years.
You were?
Yeah, I was homesick. But when I met my husband at a party, a mutual party from somebody, a gentleman named Steve Sommer. He was one of the VPs for, I think it was NBC or CBS, one of those big networks. He was having a birthday party, and I was invited because I knew I was working with one of his friends, a manager, and Jay was there. I was there, and he introduced us. And in fact, I did a job for Steve Sommer. I went around the world, and if the name Greg Kinnear means anything to anybody, I did a an in-house Condé Nast documentary thing. It's not called a documentary. It was called something else in those days.
Like not an infomercial, but
but it's for the company itself, so it's not shown nationally.
Right, it's like a corporate video, but I can't think of the term. Yeah,
exactly.
I can't think of the term.
And Greg and I were the two hosts of the bit, and we went around the world. We literally went around the world. Wow. And we filmed in 8 different countries of the world. And
wow, what an experience!
It was life altering. What
was your favorite country?
I think I fell in love with 2, and it was bizarre. If you gave me these names, I wouldn't have picked them out beforehand. I fell in love with Egypt and with Thailand.
2 places I've never been, and I would like to go to both. And David just said industrial.
Industrial, yeah.
Right? I knew the word, but I couldn't come up
industrial.
With it. Thank you, David. That's amazing. Yeah. Oh wow. I mean, and to get to go when you're not paying is also quite spectacular.
First class. It was amazing. Yeah, it was a dream like, actually. It was dreamlike.
Wow. Is your husband in this business?
Yes, he's a writer. He's a producer. He has done directing. Mostly, though, he's known for his writing. He worked with, oh no, he's gonna kill me when a famous comedian Jay Leno. He worked with Jay Leno for a while. When Jay Leno was working as the guest host for
Johnny Carson.
Yeah, oh, wow. So he would be in the writer's room with coming up with jokes and stuff like that, and working on his specials and things of that nature. In fact, now my husband and I, we have one of his scripts. He still loves comedy, and he's extremely good at it. And we have a script that never got picked up. So we're thinking of doing some sort of radio podcast style serial with it. Yeah, so look out for the name Invaders. Invaders from Beyond is the name of his piece, Invaders from Beyond. And if you see it as a podcast, chime in, because it's all about how all the different alien societies within a week invade the Earth, and the hilarity that ensues.
I love it. I mean, yeah, podcasts are, huge again, going back to the old format of radio drama, really.
Which I was on too. I did that.
Soaps began on the radio. I mean, it's, it's really wild to see that it's sort of taken back. If a soap came calling today, would you even consider it?
Of course I would. Yeah, why not? And you know what? Have me be someone's, manipulative mother, or some CEO or a lawyer, and have me on for 6 months. I know how to do 6 months.
You don't want a long period. Come in and come out.
Yep. Have a life.
Hit them. Yeah, absolutely. What's the best part of California these days for you?
Well, we live in the area. You see the Hollywood sign behind me as my virtual background. We actually live in this neighborhood, and I took that photo. And so,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and so I think what I love is the consistency in the weather. Now we're going to get some warm trend, but it's been gorgeous the entire year, temperate and lush where I live. And we live where there's, coyotes and deer and stuff. So that has so touched my love of nature. I've even, been fostering monarch butterflies, and so that's the things in my life that I love doing. I love connecting with nature. I love giving back to the world through that avenue. We have a lot of cats. I was a volunteer for a rescue. So if you don't want a lot of pets, don't volunteer at a rescue, because if your heart is as soft as mine, you'll end up with more than you probably should rightfully have.
That's funny. And you coach. How did you get into coaching?
Well, I think it was a natural progression from my love of psychology. And then I was really turned on to personal growth. In fact, I'm going to give some credit to Malcolm Groom. He he was doing some sort of meditations, and I started getting turned on to things like that, and the Silva mind control. It's called the Silva method now, but in those earlier days, I really loved the outside inner world. Like I loved the world inside that was about something bigger. And I just got very involved wanting to know more about what is that all about. And in the beginning, it seemed, really like I loved the woo-woo thing about it. But then as I understood it better, I really started to get that when you are connecting to who you truly are, like when you can find your own pure essence outside of all the mind chatter, you can actually find something called peace, right? And I don't have regrets. Maybe I did when I was younger. If I look back on my career, I have a little bit of a heart tug, like, why didn't I become a famous actress, right? Why didn't my career explode, right? It had all the makings. And when I release that and I really look at what I have in my life now, I have everything that I ever wanted. And I have this state of balance and peace. And when I have challenges, which I do, don't think I don't, I'm finding ways of dealing with them rather than possibly acting out the way I might have if I didn't stop all of the outside desires. What do you think of me? Am I pretty enough? Oh, I'm getting older. Oh, people don't want me because of that. Am I fat? Am I thin? Am I whatever? Do I have wrinkles? When you can get beyond that, there is a place of peace, which is so connecting and nourishing. And I want to now offer that to others. I want people to understand you can be healthy physically. You can be healthy emotionally. You can find that peace, that inner peace. You can find who you are inside yourself outside of what people have said you are. You can find that. It takes some time. It takes some commitment. And it generally takes someone to guide you initially. But I'm the kind of coach that I want people to get so proficient, they fire me. It's like, fire me as your coach. I want you to be so good, you don't need me. So, and I will say that some of the things I do give me also an income stream. So if you find what you love, that old parable, that old tenet, you can make money at it and love what you do.
I love that, Malcolm, because I remember when he was on my show, he talked about his spiritual, side.
I have to tell you, I had a little crush on him. So it was perfect for my character.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. Looking back, is there one character that just holds a dear place in your heart?
I think through each of the experiences, there would always be one other person in the space that I just connected with and felt like, oh, I'm going to be sad. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be able to do that with them anymore. Especially when I was younger and I just lived in New Jersey and I went home. Right. So I had to give up a lot of friendships that could have had some potential. And possibly that was a little bit of my personality style. Like, okay, they don't want me. I don't want them. Right. Because of the show. Right. So in order to move on, I had to actually let go of all of my ties. But I do wish that I'd had a deeper relationship with Christie. I really liked her. I thought she is just this genuine
Spitfire.
Yeah. Fun. Yeah.
She is a Spitfire. Yeah.
Not a dull moment with her.
No. And people loved that character of Roxy.
Yeah, she was good. Well, that whole family, the Shane family.
The Shane family, correct.
Yeah.
Kim Zimmer, Terrell Anthony, who you worked with.
Yep. Yeah, he and her were having a thing.
there were a lot of things going on.
Yeah, there were a lot of people having things.
A lot of people having things. Well, that's a good way to end it, Ariana. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, it's been totally my pleasure. And really anybody who wants to keep up on, where I'm going and what I'm up about, just hit Facebook. I mean, I know that it's kind of elderly, but hit Facebook because I have that as one of my consistent places that I post, and just Facebook friend me. And, I'll welcome you into that world.
And and they can find out about the coaching through Facebook.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. If they want to know more about how to find their core essence, how maybe they want to, understand how to give their body all the great things to like feel their best. Those are great options, or emotionally feel your best. I'm not a therapist, but I can guide you along a path that I think could make a difference. And you can ask Bruce about this. I've helped him there. Not with the happiness in terms of emotion, but happiness in terms of body wealth.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
You stay well.
You too.
Bye, Ariana.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Thank you, Ariana, for spending the hour here. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can do so down below and turn on notifications for reminders of all upcoming shows. Join me tomorrow when actor David A. Gregory from Netflix's Uncoupled joins me live. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow.